I agree, Mr. Chairman. I think the situation with the Russians is going to be a lot tougher now than it was last time we went through that. About a little over 10 years ago, I was in this room sitting here, and we had people sitting in the chairs you're sitting in, and they assured us that Assad couldn't last more than 30 days. That was over 10 years ago, and of course he's still there. And during that 10 years, he has committed offenses that it's hard to find anyone who's ever been on this planet before that has done worse. Certainly there's some that have done the same, but he's right up there. When you see something like him being welcomed by another country as some type of a distinguished head of state, it's sickening, really. And particularly when that's being done by states that purport to be friends of ours and share our values. There's nothing in welcoming this man as a conquering hero that reflects America's values at all. I hope you'll continue in the strongest terms to communicate to those people how nauseating that is to us. The chairman and I have both done that, and we would certainly welcome the administration to join in that. What we're going through in Ukraine is somewhat like this now. We can't have this thing end just as what's happened in Syria, where, like you pointed, the hostilities have cranked down, but we can't have this end and say, okay, it's over. No, it's not over. This will never be over until the people are held to account for what they've done. And we're a long, long ways away from that. I think the one case I referred to in Germany is merely scratching the surface. But this is something that's got to go on for a long time. So I'd appreciate hearing from each of you your efforts, as the chairman and I have done, to push back on allies of ours from doing what they appear to be doing and saying, well, it's over. No, it's not.
Senator, I couldn't agree with you more. I spent 3 years in post-conflict Bosnia, about 8 years after the guns had fallen silent. It was a devastated country, and years later, it is still socially, economically, the walking wounded. And there was a deep, acute feeling among the public that accountability was missing and that they were forced to live cheek by jowl with people who had only a few years earlier killed, massacred their loved ones. So I know how the failure for accountability haunts a society, and that's why I am deeply committed to this piece of it, because a society without the means to gain accountability, to understand where their loved ones went, who was responsible, and how they will be held accountable, is a society that simply cannot heal. So I am completely dedicated to that proposition. And as to your comments 10 years ago, I will admit, at the time I was working on Iraq, I was the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Iraq. I was deeply concerned about the spillover effects of Syria's roiling conflict, that it would act as a bellows on Iraq, and indeed it did. I was never confident that Assad would fall, not because I had a crystal ball, but I think it's in the nature of such regimes that they cling they are the last man to go down and they don't crack easily. All of that said, my own conversations with our partners in the region, be they very close or not so close, will be informed by these values. I was shocked to see Bashar al-Assad welcomed as any head of state by the UAE. We've made that clear to the Emiratis that it is really just enormous propaganda value and nothing more. So I will continue those efforts as a key piece of my engagements.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm almost out of time, but Mr. O, you made passing reference in your opening statements to the prisoner situation in northeast Syria. Both the chairman and I have had heads of state and others from the region underscore what a really serious problem this is, and that it is a powder keg. What can you tell us, A, about the situation you see it there, what you see there today, and what your efforts are to do something about it?
Thank you for that question, Senator. First of all, as I noted in my opening statement, the only long-term viable solution, both for the future stabilization and stability of this area and for the enduring defeat of ISIS, is the reduction of this population and the repatriation of these ISIS fighters to their countries of origin. Some will need to go back beyond Iraq and Syria. We, led by the State Department, are continually engaging through diplomacy and offering support to those countries. Number two, tremendous efforts both through the United Nations, through the U.S. government, and through our partners in the coalition to support the Iraqi government. The majority of these fighters are Iraqi in origin. And then, of course, a long-term solution for the reintegration of Syrian fighters into their communities, which will be difficult without a broader political process in Syria. But that is a long-term proposition and will require intense and painstaking diplomacy supported by humanitarian and stabilization aid, which we will continue to do. In the short term, we are focused on ensuring that facilities are secure and humane for the housing of these fighters, and that the SDF, who are bearing the burden for the international community of securely and humanely housing these detainees, have the support that they require. So number one, we're working with the authorities Congress gave us to construct purpose-built facilities for the secure and humane detention of ISIS fighters, and ensuring that SDF guards at these detention areas have the proper training to address the needs of this population and securely continue to detain them.
Thank you. My time's up. Thank you, Ms. Chen.
Thank you. Senator Cardin is with us virtually.